Hello and welcome back to the Agostinho Zinga Show, episode number 367 with me, your host, Agostinho Zinga. How you doing? How you feeling? Great. Amazing. Hope I find you well wherever you may be, whatever you are doing. Hope you're well rested, well hydrated, your limbs are nice and loose, and you can see for the best part of 10 meters in front of you. Regardless of how far you can or cannot see, I hope you are well wherever you are. If it's your first time watching the show and you're watching this via YouTube, please make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. If you're listening via the podcast app, please share the show with your friends and leave me a 5-star review. And if you want to support the podcast via Patreon, you'll find a link in the pinned comments down below. If you support the podcast via Patreon, you get access to the entire full HD audio podcast a couple of days ahead of everybody else. So if you want to listen to the full show before it's released on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, sign up to the Patreon. All my exclusive content will be posted on there for as little as $1 a month. You get access to my entire library as well as the latest show available ahead of time before anybody else gets it. So make sure you smash that Patreon link and subscribe for as little as $1 or the equivalent of £1.20 if you're in the UK. So how are you? Good? Amazing? There's been some interesting developments, hasn't it, over the last few weeks, or the last couple of days actually. It's felt like, it's been like is it 11-day ordeal, the Messi thing? Yeah, Lionel Messi's been an 11-day ordeal. United were on the brink of not signing anybody, and now we've been signed, we've been linked to a million different players. You supposedly have news that the vaccine in Russia that they're developing for COVID has, performed quite well, but that's not an independent report, so it's hard to trust that. That's sort of like RT telling you that, isn't it, right? Russia Today telling you, oh, the vaccine's amazing, or telling us, Russia's one of the best places to live. You're like, is it though? So I'm not too sure whether or not we can kind of take any heedance or any credence to what they're saying in that regard. But it's been an interesting few weeks. It's been an interesting, not few weeks, I keep saying weeks. It's been an interesting couple of days. COVID times, the days feel like weeks and the week feels like months, isn't it, really? That's what it essentially feels like. 1 minute you're at the start of the summer, next minute it's the end of the summer. And definitely 100% in the UK and in London where I am at right now, the end of summer has definitely arrived. It's been wet, it's been muggy, it's just been a bit crap out there, innit? And it's funny because I'm sure the same people that were complaining, or like myself, I was contemplating buying a bloody fan, right? Now it's essentially redundant. Right, imagine if you purchased a fan from Amazon, a pretty good one. You spent all your time perusing the listings, going on the review sections, copy and pasting the titles or the item descriptions into YouTube to see somebody unpacking it, see if it's something that you like, and going through all that paralysis, choice paralysis, right, that we all get when there's too many options, you don't know what to choose, and then finally you choose the fan that's for you. It kind of speaks to you. You think it's going to give you that nice, sweet, cool electric breeze, and then you finally get it, and guess what, we're 4 days into September, and now suddenly, boom, it's raining. It's raining, and there's no it doesn't look like it's gonna stop anytime soon. Summer is officially done diddly done. So yeah, big up everybody that purchased the fan and thought that was a good idea. I am RAP your purchase. I guess it's not that big of a hit on your pocket. I'm assuming fans probably are like microwaves nowadays, right? You can pick up a microwave for like what, 50 quid, sometimes even 20, depending if you want to get one of those sort of like inline brand ones from Argos and whatever. So I'm sure it's not that much to pay for, but god damn it, man, the annoyance of the weather changes are always annoying in the UK, especially when we don't really have a middle ground, right? It's either really hot, like ludicrously hot, right? And as a country, we're not really designed for that, right? We don't have many places to like sit down in the shade. Most of our homes, especially buildings like the ones that I live in, are mostly new build buildings, so they're very well insulated. Most of the apartments are carpeted, so they are heat trappers, which is quite cool for the for the winter. It's amazing because you get to save a lot of money on heating. When it comes to the summer, damn it. And then plus you have like really thick, or if you live in a place that has really thick double glazing windows, you essentially feel like you're sitting on the other side of a magnifying glass. You know, when you back in the day when you'd kill ants and stuff. That's what it sort of feels like. Especially, you know, again, like I said, we're just not designed as a country for heat. But then when the rain comes, also not designed for it because everyone commutes to work. Guess what? By train. So when the rain hits or when it's windy, suddenly your train to take you to the center of London is officially off, right? Or it's delayed. So then you have to jump on a bus, which, you know, is a complete another utter nightmare. It's just all, it's a madness, really. It's a madness. So maybe our one saving grace is when it just gets cold. Cold usually the best sort of like season or the best sort of weather, sorry, in the UK. Just straight up cold. So you can put a parka on, you can sit indoors in a pub, go to a restaurant, I don't know, go to a cinema, even if you don't want to watch a movie, just go to cinema anyway, just to come and hang out and pass some time. Maybe go clubbing when they're finally open again. That's kind of all you can hope for in that regard, isn't it? That really is all you can hope for. Talking about clubbing, I'm really jealous about people that are going clubs. Actually, I've actually saved a couple of clips that I found on the old IG. I kind of do this every weekend, just so I can live vicariously for other people. I'll go on RA, I'll check listings of events that are happening, and I'll just peruse. The Instagram has a really cool feature where you can search the location of the place, and you can basically find videos, stories, and pictures from people who have attended that place that you want to go visit. You know, search by location sort of thing. So it kind of gives you a good idea about the kind of vibe that's going on there. And of course, you know, people, you know, this is Instagram, and people have to show off that they're at a place. So you definitely get the raw goss on what's going on. And some of the videos people are sharing, man, god damn it, I'm like, God, I miss raving so badly. Here's one example of a video that I've seen that I saved. This is from, I guess this is, where's this from? This is from a person called Lysas 106. Look how fun that looks. What I wouldn't give, right? What I wouldn't give to be in a to be in some sort of dark room warehouse somewhere listening to pounding techno of that ilk. I'd give my left arm, left nut, left eyeball to be someone like that. Honestly would, man. But that's not gonna happen anytime soon, I don't think, for the most sake of it. But hey, what can you do? And it's another video from this club called, what is it, Else in Berlin. They're doing a lot of open air events there at the moment. I think a lot of people are playing there. It's kind of turned into like the new spot people are playing at. The ones that are sort of like in the middle. You remember there was a big uproar about all this business techno lot going out and playing all around the world whilst COVID is around. And you know, someone, who is it, Dave Clark referred to some of the DJs as super spreaders. But I guess now that the middle, it's interesting because the middle tier people, the ones that are like sort of like on the come up, they're the ones that are complaining the most. And that my honest opinion, it felt like a lot of jealousy in some places, which makes sense because prior to COVID, there was this assumption that we all had, right, that supposedly all these promoters and, you know, we're going to start tapping into local talent instead of hiring all the big names, and that was going to be a whole boom in the scene. But essentially what ended up happening was, because everyone's money got completely deaded due to COVID, promoters didn't want to take any chances, so they'd much rather book, you know, the top 50, top 10, whatever DJs that they are in the world, and just get them to play in a 300 capacity venue because they can guarantee to sell out the tickets, right? If you're booking Jamie Jones and Svesh Troxler and Sven Var and all these kind of people, and I don't know, Solomon, to play in your 500 capacity club, you know for sure, especially when everyone's had a drought in terms of events and they're gagging to go out, you definitely can sell 500 tickets no matter where you are in the world, isn't it? And for sure, if you've got a good relationship with the person playing, you can possibly work something out too. So those hopes of, you know, the scene somehow being restored and us going back to the roots of clubbing and raving were completely dashed once we started seeing all the top business techno lot going out and playing. But it's funny to see the lack of backlash about some of these kind of, you know, middle tier-ish kind of people playing, right? One example is this, is Henning Bear, right? It's posted a video of him playing at this place called Else, and you don't really hear that much, you know, kickback on the old business techno Twitter account or people in general. Everyone's sort of like, oh my god, it's amazing, I mean, he's got the opportunity to play. So it does go to show that there was a bit of a selective outrage. I get it, right? I get it, because the business techno lot can be a bit annoying. They're extremely detached from reality. I understand it, but you know, I'm glad to see that I was proved right in some extent, right? A lot of it had to do with the fact that, you know, everyone wanted to play and they couldn't play. But yeah, this Else Club looks flipping amazing. I'd love to go, actually. Everyone has to wear a face mask. There's not much social distancing. You can't really do that, I'd imagine. But that's a picture of it, actually. I don't like how they have the decks like that, though. Or I guess, oh, so they have... I'm not really a fan when they're sort of like propped up. We had it when I used to play in this bar. They'd always have it like this, right? And in some bar, they had this sort of like they had a weird kind of stick thing with like two plates. But unfortunately, I guess maybe it was a bolt, or just, you know, they were just loose in general, but they kept spinning. So every time you'd play, they'd spin around. So you have to wait and hold the actual, you know, the casing, and then sort of like, you know, cue your song in. It just got annoying. So me personally, I prefer to have them on the ground, or sorry, on a table, on a flat surface. I don't really like them raised up in that regard. I don't think that looks good. But then it depends if you have a surface that's flat. It sounds like a dumb thing to say, but a lot of places I've played in, the surfaces aren't that flat. Stuff is like warping the other way, or there's, you know, the CD player you're playing on hasn't got many little step things that you can place on a table to level them out. But yeah, no one is kicking back off this. But this looks amazing, man. Again, not much social distancing going on there. A lot of people wearing face masks, which is good, but you know, still you're perspirating, you're near each other, sopping sweat and stuff, so it's not the best. But this video got me hyped, man. Look how fun that looks, bro. Are you stupid? That looks absolutely amazing. Again, it's an absolute COVID petri dish, as they say, right? But how fun would that be? How fun would that be? But yeah, would you go to some place like that, or are you still on the fence? Something that you're kind of thinking, you know what, I'm not gonna bother risking it, because I'm the same. Don't get me wrong. I'm just talking a big game here. I'm far away from this happening. I'm giving it the big one, but I have no desire of going myself in that regard. But anyway, got a jam-packed show for you today. Loads of stuff to get through. Interesting news across the board. So grab yourself a drink and something to eat, or whatever it is that you've got, and let's dive on deep. So story number one, which was hilarious. Allegedly, or not allegedly, because you know she's been tried and found guilty, but a cleaner stole 31,000 after an open source charity shop refunded her in error. This is what is a sad story. It's a sad story, but it's also funny, because if you've ever worked in retail, you'd know how often, or how how often and how easy it is to make an error like this. That was one of the parts of retail that I never really enjoyed, and something that I've continually have struggled with in my life, right, is my inability to do any kind of simple equations, right? Maths isn't my forte. And of course, most shops, most retail stores have, tills that are fairly intuitive. You get, especially when you get new merchandise in, that's usually scanned in beforehand via head office. You download a packet or something that kind of uploads into your system. You're scanning it into store when it arrives to your delivery driver, and then that goes into your stock, right, digitally. So it then updates the stock system on the till automatically. So it's not much you need to do in it. You're just literally pressing buttons on the screen. You scan a thing, it says how much money you're tendering, you put it in, it tells you how much to give back, blah blah blah. But there are occasions when sometimes those sort of like digital systems that they use to sort of update stock and manage it don't work, and then you have to sort of like figure stuff out on the sly, mark stuff down with a pen. I don't know, just you just have to kind of use your common sense or your basic arithmetics. And I don't have the basic arithmetic, so there's been occasions where you've maybe incorrectly given someone change. You gave them incorrect change. You've refunded them too much. Not to this extent, don't get me wrong, but I can definitely see where the error would happen and how it would occur, especially if the person's chatting, because that's a standard trick some scammers do as well. They do a trick where they'll distract you with their charm and their wit as they get to the till, or they'll just confuse you with loads of different scenarios that are not of your, they're not of your doing. Like, oh my god, I think I lost my keys. Or do you see any keys over there? Okay, no. How much is that? Can I pay half in cash, half in card? Just start throwing stuff at you, and then you just lose yourself, and then suddenly you're tapping too many zeros into the machine. But this is a hilarious story because I think a lot more people would have done this than would care to admit. But anyway, it continues. Says a cleaner spent 31,000 in a day after a charity shop accidentally transferred more than 90,000 into her bank account. Comfort Kondu from Manchester, auntie went in, bro. She was not playing. She even turned up to court in a pink jacket, flossing. Auntie Comfort Kondu was returning an item to a charity shop for £9 refund when a mistake happened. But instead of alerting her bank or the charity for the unexpected windfall, the grandmother of 12 fell prey to temptation and acted dishonestly. Is that her saying that? I fell prey to temptation and the devil. Oh, gotta love it. Kondu 52. Oh, it looks great for her age, isn't it? For 15 months. Suspended for 2 years after admitting the theft at Manchester court. Now, don't get me wrong, stealing from charity shops is scum, right? But she didn't actually put a gun up to someone's head and then jack the money from the safe, right? It was a clerical error by the staff member. Don't get me wrong, right? Don't get me wrong, please. But doesn't it sound worth it for 30 grand, suspended jail sentence, 2 years, 15 months for 2 years, which she's definitely not going to get in trouble again. I'm assuming she's probably going to keep her nose clean, and she was able to kind of like launder that money out of the country and put it into the hands of people most at need, right? People back home, right? Help to build a house for somebody, contribute to somebody setting up a business, maybe put a couple people through school, right? Because that kind of money will go a long way back in Africa, right? So imagine, like, it might be worth it. It legitimately might be worth it. Obviously, she got a criminal record, and having a face plastered across the BBC and having a wallad like me talk about it isn't the greatest thing. But I don't know, man. A part of me is thinking it's maybe a risk worth taking. Not a risk, but it's a risk worth taking if you're gonna obviously transfer into other accounts. The court heard how staff inadvertently added 2 noughts and 4 other figures while entering an electronic credit card note into the till at the Men Cap shop in Openshaw in October 2019. So true, and it happens a lot more often than you'd imagine, honestly. Especially the times that I've been working in retail, where essentially the machine that you used to pay, you used to refund person as well. So that kind of, what's it called? I don't know, whatever it's called, PPE machine, whatever that card machine is called. So sometimes you have to be very, very careful. That's why sometimes if you look at somebody that's refunding you in the store, they're usually very slow and methodical in the amount of numbers that they're pressing in there. And then of course, the more senior the person is, and if they've definitely got, especially if they've got keys jangling off their jeans, they'll be like pressing that stuff, like, not even looking, which always kind of upsetted me and got me really angry. But it said here, once she realized the area, Kondu of Openshaw transferred 57 into other accounts, 57 grand into other accounts, including those of her family. So I'm assuming the other. Oh, so I'm assuming the other 30, whatever's made up, they kind of got a hold of, but the other bit they didn't get a hold of, I'm assuming. I don't know. The charity shop quickly discovered the error, but they only managed to retrieve 2/3 of the missing money. It is not known what the rest of the cash was spent on. Of course it's not known. Imagine them trying to pin this on her, like interviewing the auntie like in the room for hours trying to get her to confess, and she's like, I don't know, I sent it to my what's their names? I don't have their names. What's their email? I only have their email addresses. You're trying to email them and they're not replying back. It's just madness. It's believed the charity which helps people with learning difficulties will now be liable to the loss because it was caused by human error. Oh, that's the bummer bit, innit? That's the bummer. I wonder if the staff member got sacked. I'm assuming yes. Let's say that for sure. Maybe not now. Maybe not during these times. I'm not sure if it happened now or if it happened ages ago. But bloody hell, man. She will now face a proceeds of crime hearing where she'll be expected to return the outstanding 31 grand, which represents 18 months worth of profits for the charity shop. Jesus Christ. Again, she's probably going to be put on a payment plan and she'll rather take that hit in it, I guess. Kondo initially claimed she had been expecting a 12,000 from another source. When she realized that she was higher than expected, she said that she had tried to raise the issue with her bank, but inquiries revealed this was false. Of course, they've only got to check the records. Defense counsel Max Safman said Kondo was a hardworking lady in the vast majority of her time. Sentencing Judge Nicholas Dean QC said Kondo fell prey to temptation to use the money she knew perfectly well wasn't hers. This is out of character for you, and you're brought on yourself great shame and, dare I say, a very great deal of anxiety. Mate, shame and anxiety for 57 grand to send back home to your family and friends in a country that they need it the most, right? Is probably a risk worth taking, especially if she decides to probably do what I think she might end up doing. Just buy the first ticket back wherever she's from and just not come back. Oh, absolute legend. Absolute bloody legend, man. What would you do if that was you? If someone incorrectly refunded you 90,000 into your account, what would you do? Especially now, right, with how the situation is going on now with COVID and people's lack of prospects. What would you do, honestly? And again, it's even worse because the scenario is a charity shop, so everything's laid out for it to be an easy moral decision where you just say, I just give the money back. But honestly, tell me what you do. Let me know in the comments down below. What would you do if somebody incorrectly refunded you 90,000 into your account? And that drops straight away as well, I'm assuming. Bloody hell, painful stuff, man. Painful stuff. Next on the list, just a kind of observation, I guess, for myself. Obviously, most of you guys are aware that Joe Rogan has now moved to Texas. I'm assuming it's Houston, or is it Austin? I don't know, whatever city he's in. But he's it's the next evolution of the Joe Rogan podcast, where he's signed to Spotify now, an exclusive licensing deal, and he's essentially moved his entire family to Texas in order to escape the taxes of California and generally just kind of start afresh, I'm assuming, because California seems like it's the only one of only a few states that's really stringent when it comes to COVID. They're not really messing around. They're not trying to take any chances. They've shut most of the businesses down, and there doesn't seem to be any prospect of them reopening the arts and culture side of things, or the nightlife scene in bars and pubs and comedy clubs. So it makes a lot of sense why a lot of these guys are deciding to pack up their microphones and their and their stalls. Big up the still fuckers out there. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense why they'd rather go to Texas and start anew, maybe in a state where they're a bit more loose with the rules and not taxing you as much. Because I'd imagine too, if you live in California and you earn a lot of money and you get taxed a lot as well, right, for the money you earn, but then you feel as if you are giving something back because you live, I guess you feel like you get something back because of the vicinity to the industry that you're living in, right? You're right next to Hollywood. You got all the biggest agencies next to you, CAA, WME, all offices are there, production studios, all that good stuff, right? Sponsors all come there, talent, blah 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 blah. But once COVID hits and people are not able to move around and deals are not able to get done as easy as they were in the past, it would make sense why you'd be like, what am I actually paying my taxes for, right? What's the point of being here? You'd rather give your taxes to a place where they're a bit more, cavalier, dare I say, with the rules. But anyway, the point of this was to say, like, I guess the older you get, especially for myself, because I've been back in the gym lately, as you can tell from the traps here, right? Or delts, whatever that muscle is called here. I look bloody wham in this shirt. But I've been going back to the gym, and I guess now that I'm older, the allure of having a home gym is really strong. I think before, when I was younger, I would be like, it's a bit dumb. I'd rather just go to the gym and just do it there. I like the idea of kind of going places. I think the same thing when I used to write a lot. I'd usually pack up my laptop and head to a library or go to a cafe and just kind of, bang out a few blogs and then go back home. I kind of like the idea of like kind of going to work, even if I was just writing on a blog somewhere. If it was a Pret or Starbucks, it didn't matter. So the gym's sort of the same sort of thing, right? The idea that you're going to a place, you kind of clocking in, clocking out. But the older you get, you start to realize sometimes convenience, especially if you've got the kind of determination and willpower and resolute and kind of, you're kind of set in your habits and the things that you do, you could easily have a home gym and actually use it. Because obviously my nightmare would be having a home gym, building it all up, and then you know, just gathering dust because you can't be bothered. Sort of like how people have like, you know, treadmills at home and they don't use them. But I think in this era, I definitely would use it. And Joe Rogan's probably got one of the sickest home studio-ish gym things that he has. He had the same thing in LA studio. He's got an entire sort of MMA gym laid out there with heavy bags and stuff, but it looks really, really good. I'm assuming it's in this new studio space. It looks so banging. And it just got me jealous, you know, to have my own studio, office, gym set up very, very soon, actually. And I would actually be willing to like set something up like just temporarily somewhere, right? Rent a storage unit or a shed somewhere and just kind of kit it out with a rack, barbell, and that's basically all you need, isn't it? A couple dumbbells and stuff, and that's it really. You could basically get most of your stuff done on there. I definitely have something like that. It looks bloody amazing though, isn't it, right? And it's all custom made as well, loads of great details on it. The logo of the company that he's using, Sorinex, all over the place with the alien head. Nicely done, man. So cool. I'd love to have something like this in my gaff for sure. And I guess this is kind of the way I see you would kind of, this is what would represent wealth to me, right? Not just having, you know, a flooded AP or Rolex, right? It would be this idea that you could kind of it's effectively what the Tim Ferriss basically was talking about, right? Isn't it, right? About designing your life in a way where you're doing the things that you actually enjoy most of the time, and then whatever business that you start is sort of accruing money in the background whilst you sort of like do the stuff that you actually enjoy. And this is it for me, as opposed to like, you know, buying a bloody Ferrari and shit, which is, you know, it would be fun, but the ability to just like, you know, go and see your favorite DJ play somewhere or at a drop of a hat because you just found out today, or, you know, be able to bang out some weights before you head out to the club will be sick, and downstairs in your gym will be bloody amazing, man. So that's cool to see from Joe. Next on the list, this is quite hilarious. So how are you getting on with wearing the mask in public, the face mask? They've been a bit the area that I live in, the adoption rate is sort of like 50-50. Depends what time of day you go outside. If I have to go out in the morning, especially when I'm going gym or going for a run, usually most people are masked up. I feel like, I think the early risers kind of know what they're doing, but then the later you go into the afternoon, into the evening, it's just, you know, it's a roll of the dice whether or not you're going to get COVID or not. No one really sort of abides by this, you know, the safe space rules and the 2 meters queuing up in shops and shit. So it's all a bit mad. So I try to do most of my going out in general weekly shopping before the hours of like 10 to 12. I try and do it before 10, let's just say. And if I do go after 12, you know, you're just sort of like playing with fire. But there's been a lot of people coming out, a lot of companies actually designing different sort of masks, thinking that we might be under lockdown or we might be in a new normal for a long period of time. So I've seen some startups designing like smart face masks, if that's a thing, right? You heard about that? Which is quite odd actually as a thing, a smart face mask, but I guess it kind of links up to your phone. It kind of maybe tells you when to change your filter and blah 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 blah. And then I've seen these other ones which I kind of stumbled sometimes on, you know, in your feed you get some random thing that looks like it was like it's sold on Wish and it never arrived, right? And I've seen these sort of like a clear plasticky sort of looking mask that allow people to see your mouth moving as you're talking, because I guess that's the one thing that you kind of miss when you're wearing a mask, especially when you're out and about, right? That sort of like non-verbal facial cues, right? You don't really see them because obviously half your face is covered up and it's hard to listen. And you realize how much of your especially my kind of comprehension of people when they're speaking is usually based on how their mouth moves as opposed to what I actually hear, which is maybe a bad way to actually listen to people. But nonetheless, someone tried to address this issue in the shape of a place called SEUS 95, and they're doing lab testing of a new transparent face shield and respirator, and it looks pretty horrendous. But let's kind of play the video here. Actually, let's go back, let's read that. Researchers found that sneeze or a cough can send 100,000 pathogens into the air up to 100 miles per hour. No face mask. Ugh. N95 mask, cough goes through. Okay, I didn't know that. And then what about this mask? SUN full shield, no ear loops, skin therapy layer, reusable medical shield, replaceable filters. That looks so scary though, doesn't it? That reminds me of, like, what movie is this? It kind of reminds me of a movie. Maybe not Ex Machina, but something similar. No, allow that. I don't see. I'd rather wear a t-shirt across my face. And for those who aren't watching, it's essentially a plastic face shield that sort of like sticks to your face like a face shield in a normal way, but it's completely transparent. We believe that good design protects and celebrates our faces. Let's see you smile again. No, thank you, man. Light Warrior, S1, what's that? No, thank you. Patent pending self-adhesive skin healing. That's a pretty cool idea, right? Somehow they designed a face mask that doesn't go over your face, that doesn't go over your ears. Is that like a point of contrition? Is that something that annoys you? I've never even knew that was a thing. That was something that people hated, that you had to kind of put it over your earlobe, your earlobe. Sorry, it's like, I don't even think that was a big idea, but I like the idea, you know. Regardless, it sort of like sucks in into your cheeks. Let's see us again. Let's stop this. Okay, fair enough. That's fine. Sanitizer, you can wash it under the tap with soap and water, or microwave for 30 minutes. Or alcohol wipes, or dishwasher. That's a bleak world, isn't it? I'd much rather we just have a vaccine than be washing my transparent face shield in a dishwasher. That's really, really bleak. For example, no ear loops again, no more pressure. Is it really pressure though? That's some. Be a light warrior. Use your smile to change the world. Oh, there's nothing worse than those kind of corny design terms, isn't it, right? Fashion's gonna change the world. We're gonna change the world with this Mac that we made. It's like, you're not gonna change the world by designing a bomber jacket, mate. No one gives a toss. And a face shield is even less so. Yeah, again, for me, in my liking, seeing that up close would send shivers down my spine, right? I don't want this, right? Seeing a friend turn up and be like, hey, what's up, man? And then see their face under this plastic face shield would really be disturbing, to say the least. Again, you know, I don't see anything wrong with the standard face covering or shield. For the most part, it does the job. The last thing we need is these kind of mad contraptions. But maybe this is the future. Maybe this is an acceptance of, or an indication of, where we're sort of heading as time rolls by and we don't have a vaccine. This might be our actual reality, like for real. And I'm worried. I'm scared. Are you? Would you wear such a thing? Are face masks usually that go over your earlobes, is that really annoying? Is that like a thing? I'm assuming it is, because I'm assuming this sort of design concept, they probably did a survey and sort of picked out some pain points and addressed them. But I didn't know the earlobe thing was a big deal. Is the earlobe thing a big deal for you? Would you wear this mask? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, let's move on from that. What else do we have here to talk about? Oh, just a little short one regarding BBC. Not the brand that I kind of remember, Billionaires Boys Club. If you're not familiar with it, you should get off this channel. But essentially, it was founded by Pharrell and Nigo during the heydays of Bathing Ape in the early 2000s. Kind of a staple brand in streetwear, but it had a really short run. It really, honestly, one of the weirder ones in that kind of Bape universe, right? It kind of fizzled out very quickly. Now I'm not too sure it's because they licensed it out pretty quickly, or if Pharrell sort of stepped back or Nigo stepped back. But whatever it was, man, it kind of has turned to complete dog shit since then, really, which is a shame, because I felt like Pharrell did some interesting stuff with the brand back in the day, but the stuff they're doing now is just not good at all, right? Again, maybe it's because it's aimed at the customer base that's a lot younger than I am. So there's a lot of emphasis on logos and stuff, and the stuff that Pharrell did back in the day with Billionaire Boys Club or Nigo, they both did together. Although there was a lot of logos, there was more so interesting cuts and colors and stuff. But this is just logo supreme, literally everywhere. You got the dog obviously on the jeans, got jackets, like logos in literally every place. That flannel's pretty nice though. It's a bit needleless, don't get me wrong, style, but I like the panel with the patches and the sleeves on it. Bandana's pretty cool, but yeah, it's just, it died a slow death, man. Interesting how it happened. So that, I wonder who's even operating it now, or who's, if it's a thing where they like, because there's a lot of brands out there that do that. They don't really tell people or their customer base, but there's a lot of brands that are not run by the people that founded it previously, and they just basically license it out, licenses the brand name to different designers, or have other people come in and design collections. So that's why sometimes you look back at some of these brands, lookbooks or line sheets, none of the collections make sense. They don't line up with each other because, you know, they've been designed by two completely different teams. And I think that might be the case with Billionaire Boys Club at the moment, which is a shame, really, like I said, because I was a real big fan of the brand, man, back in the day. But unfortunately, none of this sort of appeals to me at this current moment in time. Again, some interesting jeans, a little bit Bravado-ish, I guess, in that regard, but maybe they'd say some more of a Japanese influence with the patches. But yeah, bandana maybe look a little bit cute, but yeah, I'm not really a fan of any of this, unfortunately. Sad that it's kind of flopped this way, really. But hey, these things happen, innit? Brands cannot go on forever. Then secondly, there's a feature here from Hypebeast, looking at some of the fragment design and Jordan collection. I'm not sure if this is a thing that Nike or Jordan are doing, where they're sort of like reintroducing brands or reintroduce themselves to a market again, because obviously you have the great collection that Union did recently, with the apparel and the footwear, right? The Jordan 4s are, you know, the black and the guavas are maybe one of my favorite shoes of this year, easily hands down, especially the way that they kind of, you know, flip the tongue, change the paneling, you know, had like a yellow sort of like vintage looking sole, and even just the colorways in general, very uniquely done in a very tasteful manner. And maybe this is again Jordan brand sort of like saying, hey, we're recognizing the heat that we're getting from Yeezy, right? Yeezy has definitely jumped over the jump, man, and they're trying to re-establish their position, and there's no better way to do it than to tap into Fragment, right? Hiroshi Fujiwara's legendary design studio brand thing that he uses to kind of collaborate with different sort of companies, and again, coming from a stalwart in the scene, somebody that I kind of look up to, and somebody that I've sort of been obsessed with since I first got into streetwear back in the day, Hiroshi. And you know, I'm a big fan of all the stuff that he does, but I like this stuff, man. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe some could argue that the collection's actually better than the shoes, but I love it all. Jordan collaboration with Fragment here, featured on Hypebeast. Let's go through some of the pictures. And some of they're gonna be uploaded up. Yeah, it's loading up full screen. Let's go there. Let's see what it looks like. Come on, bruv. Okay, maybe not. Why isn't it loading? Why isn't it letting me see the pictures? Come on. Let me see the pictures. Let me see the pictures. Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's just get this off and go this way. So, you got some nice jumpers. I actually like the logo on this, actually. The idea that they just got Air Jordan with the Fragment logo next to it. I think that's a pretty cool and clever way to do things. Very plain, very easily done. You got the Fragment logo in the sort of colligate font on the jumper, on the pullover top. And then you've got another insight into what the Jordan 3s are going to look like, which is quite cool. I like that. You see that? Yep. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me reload that again. It's going a bit booky at the moment. Give me one moment. But even the Jordan 3s I'm a big fan of. And Jordan 3s I've had a really odd relationship with. I've had a few cement 3s over the years, and they're hard to wear, I found. Unless you're wearing them with shorts. I found like most jeans don't really fit Jordan 3s, especially back in the day when we used to always bloody spray on skinnies from top, or when I used to wear spray on skinnies from top, man. Trying to wear those with a pair of Jordan 3s, you just end up looking like a bit of a spanner. And then if you try and wear, maybe nowadays with the trend of people wearing like kind of bell-bottom jeans, that might work out, but they're hard to figure out, man. Even in, you know, kind of BDUs or sweatpants, it just doesn't seem to really work. Maybe sweatpants is a good idea, like some sort of like Champion wide cuffed, wide ribbed, elastic ribbed sort of like sweatpants. Not the sort of like really tight ones around your ankles, but the ones that the ribbing is a bit loose with the zip on the side. That might work out, but yeah, I like the Jordan 3s, man. There they are here featured. Again, the lacing on this video shoot, so on this photo shoot's a bit dead because I'm assuming the model isn't a size 8. I'm assuming these are just probably sample sizes that they're given to wear. But yeah, I like it, man. I like the entire collection. I'd actually wear the F out of all of this stuff easily. The collegiate hoodie, massive logo there on the back. Again, the t-shirt with some great bottoms. I'm assuming the jumper's going to be really well made as well. What's that called? Raglan sleeve on the jumpers. Nice logo there on the front with the massive logo on the back. This is going to sell like hotcakes, I think. This collection is really good. Again, good kind of signature colorways from Fragment in their kind of designs, right? A lot of navies and loads of hues of like blue. I love what he does with that. Oh, we've got a color print here on the back of Michael Jordan dunking, I guess, in the sakes of it. Oh, that logo on the front looks bad. I love that. That looks really cool. I love that. Really well done, actually. And the Jordans will probably sell out too, because I think they've got the Fragment funder at the back of the hill, so they'll just generally sell out just for the sake of it, innit? Anything with a logo from the company usually does well. But I'm a fan of it. What do you think? Are you a fan of it? Do you like it? Do you think it's a little bit played out? Or they've got a pair of Jordan, these are sort of like the Jordan Futures or whatever they call it. They've got the model, which I'm not really a fan of, but I like it, man. I like the tracksuit, I like the hoodies. I'd wear the F out of all of this. The shoes are really good as well for me personally. Oh, you see, they've got the little Thunderbolt here on the back. And I'd imagine these will end up being a bit of a sleeper. They'll end up being a shoe people sort of overlook and think, oh, they're not that great, and then, you know, they'll end up selling out and be impossible to get later on. So if you do get a chance to get them, make sure you do. I actually like how they've sort of like put that together personally for me. Not like, oh, that looks banging at the back, innit? That is really good, and that's what I meant by a bit of a wide sort of like elasticated bottom there on your pants. Big fan of those, man. Big fan. The entire collection. When's that due to come out there? From Hypebeast, it says it's due to come out with any dates. Yeah, Fragment Design Jordan collaboration collection releases globally September 17th, except for the Fragment Design Jordan 35 Fragment, which drops October 28th. So very soon. Keep an eye out for all that when it drops. So next on the list, what else we need to talk about here? Should we move? Oh, let's move on to Messi. Actually, Messi's finally kind of sorted out his future, which I guess is a good thing if you're a Barcelona fan. For everybody else in football, the football is a bit divided. It feels like, I think one side of the argument are like, oh, he should be allowed to leave and for free. He's given Barcelona everything. Look at what he's contributed. Blah blah blah. And the other side of the argument, which I am on, is like, hey, you signed a contract, you knew exactly what the terms were, right? I'm assuming his camp were already looking at the contract and thinking to move, because this didn't come out of anywhere, out of the blue, sorry. And to work in that kind of a clause in your contract that allows you to leave for free at the end of the season there must have already been an inkling that he wasn't going to stay at Barcelona forever, which kind of goes against what everyone thought, or what he basically told everybody in the first place. So my position is that he knew what the contract length was, he knew what the clause was, and if he wanted to leave, regardless, because I think his kind of sticking point is that, oh, I said I wanted to leave. Who's that guy? Whatever, the higher ups at Barcelona basically agreed that if at the end of the season, which is basically June, I think it's stipulated in the contract, he'd be allowed to leave. But I guess because of Corona, Lionel Messi's team are arguing that the actual season's just ended recently, right? So it's not the end of June. So, but that still counts as the end of the season. But of course, if it's a contract and it says June, then it's June. Or if it says July, it's July. There's no, you can't really spin that one. So I guess regrettably, he decided to say, hey, I'm going to stay then for the year, and then I'm going to leave next year on June. But of course, anything can change in football between now and then. Ronald Koeman could just hit the ground running and get Barcelona challenge finishing La Liga and challenging in Champions League, and it'll be very difficult for him to leave. He obviously wants to leave to challenge for stuff and win trophies, but I still think he could have gone about this a much better way, in my opinion. But anyway, this is an article from Goal, who I don't know how, right? They're a bit of a useless site when it comes to transfer news and gossip and stuff. So I don't know how they managed to get his interview, but props to them. I suppose supposedly word on the net is that they just rocked up to his house and just asked for an interview when everything was going on. They were kind of the first people to get there on scene, so maybe that was the case. But very well done interview from them regardless. So it says here, Messi's Barcelona heartbreak revealed from his son's tears to refusing to go on trial. He says the following: Lionel Messi has revealed that his heartbreaking decision to leave Barcelona and why he ultimately chose to stay with the club in a world exclusive. The 33-year-old who spent 20 years at Catalan dropped the bombshell news on Barcelona late August that he intended to leave on a free transfer. However, Barcelona refused to agree or recognize the breaking his contract, as they claimed the moment for using it had passed in June, and so a stalemate began in the Argentinian international tried to find a way out. However, Messi was accepted. He must stay at Camp Nou to avoid dragging his beloved club to court, but only after experiencing a desperately sad couple of weeks. He says, "When I communicated my wish to leave to my wife and children, it was a brutal drama," Messi told Goal. "The whole family began crying. My children did not want to leave, nor did they want to change school," which says a lot, really, isn't it? Because this is something I've kind of thought about, I think, with a lot of these players on the continent, especially South American players from the Mediterranean. They're very family orientated, right? So I think a lot of the UK teams, especially teams in the Premier League, they really miss a trick by not. I think if you're going to get a Brazilian player in your team and you're Burnley, you just have to get somebody else beforehand, right? Whether it's a kid in the reserves or somebody that works behind the scenes, right? But you need somebody to kind of welcome them. Because I still remember that story of like Hernan Crespo turning up to like, no, is it Hernan Crespo? Hernan Crespo, I think it might have been for Chelsea. He wasn't given a liaison to how to move in London, right? This is like a world-renowned striker, right? Obviously on the decline a little bit, but still somebody well regarded, and I think they just assumed that he knew his way around London. He was just essentially left alone in his home the first night after signing for Chelsea, sort of isolated, and that's not the best way to get the best out of these sort of Mediterranean players. You have to kind of build the teams kind of around them or with them in mind. So it does take a lot for the player himself to say like, I want to change, because usually it's the other way around. Usually it's the family, the wife, the children, or extended family that are complaining and say that they want to change the scenery. Usually it's that way around. But for him to decide, hey, I want to move my family to bloody England, especially because as rumours you're going to Man City, that would have been a bit of a culture shock. He continues, says, "But I looked further afield and I want to compete at the highest level, win titles, compete in Champions League. You can win or lose in it because it's very difficult, but you have to compete." And again, they haven't been competing lately. He mentions here, at least compete for it, and let's not fall apart like we did in Rome, Liverpool and Lisbon. All that led me to think about the decision that I wanted to carry out. He says, however, that ambition to accept a new challenge was thwarted by Barcelona president Jose Maria Bartomeu, who's bloody enemy number one at the moment. But I also understand why he didn't want to allow Messi to leave under any circumstance, right? He's up for re-election, but regardless of that, even if he doesn't get re-elected, you don't want your legacy to be you were the guy that let Messi leave this club, especially under this sort of like malaise that they're in at the moment. They've got a few really young talented players at the moment, right? Obviously Ansu Fati is the one that sticks out to everybody, but they've got a few more in the kind of ranks that they might be able to promote. But the last thing that you want, but for sure, right, the team isn't ready to win, big honors at the moment yet, especially if they aren't able to sign players to the extent that they probably did in the past. They probably don't have the budget for it at the moment. So, but still, that being said, if you're Bartomeu, you don't want to let him go. You don't, because the club will potentially implode. Especially when you consider the tickets. I mean, the ticket sales, even to watch the games, are maybe heavily influenced by Messi. The shirt sales for sure. There's a lot of branding that goes, with his name as well. So to letting all that walk out the door is just something that I don't really have any gripe to bear with him, man. I would have done the same thing. There's no way you can let Messi leave for free, especially for free. He says, continues, says, I thought and was sure that I was free to leave. The president always said that at the end of the season I could decide if I stayed or not. And this is a good point, because I think every other legend, Iniesta, Xavi, even David Villa, was allowed essentially to leave for free. I think David Villa, I'm not too sure, but especially Iniesta and Xavi. So if you're Messi and you have that kind of legend status at the club, you'd expect them to allow you to kind of go if you wanted to go without kind of taking your club to court. But then there's part of me is thinking, why wouldn't you want your old team to get money too, right? Why wouldn't you want Man City to cop up 700 M's? I guess they can't, because they got to pretend they're abiding by financial fair play, but why wouldn't you want your club to get like a little bit of money for all the money they invested in you? I don't know. Maybe that's something to think about another time. He says, now they cling on to the fact that I did not say it before June 10th, which when it turns out that on June 10th we were competing for the league in the middle of this awful coronavirus and this disease altered our season. And this is the reason why I'm going to continue with the club. Now I'm going to continue with the club because the president told me that the only way to leave is if it was to pay 700 million clause, and that is impossible. Imagine being worth 700 mil. But it's also an indication of just how much better he is than everybody else, isn't it? That he's like rated at that much, and no one's batting an eyelid at the moment. No one's sort of questioning his valuation. They're just questioning whether or not the club would be able to pay it. But no one's like, oh, that's ridiculous money. Because even at 33, right, with like maybe, you know, he hasn't got a turn of pace he once had, but still, it seems like an actual good idea, especially when you count the amount of money he generates year on year. Do you know what I mean? Just being himself. It continues. It says here there was only one way out if Messi was to leave, taking Barcelona to court. But that six-time Ballon d'Or winner refuses to take that route, and so will remain at the club for another 10 months. There was another way to, and it was going to go trial. He said, "I would never go to court against Barca because it's a club that I love, which gave me everything. Which since I arrived, it is a club of my life, and I had my life here." Well, you know, you definitely went to leave. It's not club of your life, Damien, is it, mate? Barca gave me everything, and I gave them everything. I know it that it never crossed my mind to take Barca to court, which is nice of him. I think that was the one thing that I was kind of relieved about. I think the way he went about it was really poor, you know, not turning up to training and all this sort of stuff. I think that's really poor, especially when you're not sure if the stipulation in your contract is kind of right or not. I think you would have been better to see him kind of, you know, just turn up to training, go about his business, and then deal with this behind the scenes. That would have been a better way to do it. But again, you know, he's probably frustrated with the entire organization, how badly it's been managed. You know, maybe some people would argue they're kind of, you know, residing over the worst Barcelona squad in living memory, I think. Or, you know, especially if you're according to Twitter, I would assume a lot of those guys haven't seen Barcelona before that social media era. But this is the worst one for, you know, by a country mile. So, you know, I understand both parties in this respect. It opens up. He said Messi opened up the on a heartbreaking conversation he had with his son Thiago, who didn't want to leave, while praising his wife Antonella for standing by his side through all the backlash for his desire to leave Barcelona. Well, of course she's going to do that. What else is she going to do? Mateo is still little, so he doesn't realize what it means to go somewhere else and make your life for a few years elsewhere. Thiago is older. He's heard something on TV and found out something and asks. I didn't want him to know anything about being forced to leave, to have to live in a new school, make new friends. He cried to me and said, "Let's not go," and repeated that it was hard, really. Ugh, yeah, that must be a difficult one, isn't it? Again, especially when you're a Mediterranean player and you're very family orientated and you essentially do everything for your familia, to have them crying and sobbing at your feet, telling you, "Please, let's not go to bloody rainy Manchester." Because if ever there was a culture, if ever there was a complete opposite of climate and people and stuff like that, it definitely will be playing for, again, you're not playing for a Man United, you're not playing for Bayern Munich, you're playing for like City. Do you know what I mean? It's not got the same allure that Barcelona would have, so it'll be an interesting place for him to go. But it would be fun just to see the Man City Stadium full, though, to be completely honest. And that's not even a dig. It'll be quite cool to see it packed to the rafters every week with Messi playing. That'd be absolutely gnarly. It continues here. It says, "I love Barcelona. I'm not going to find a better place than here anyway." Oh yeah, but you went to go somewhere else. I still have the right to decide. And true, I was going to look for new goals and new challenges, and tomorrow I could go back because here in Barcelona I have everything. My son, my family, they grew up here and they are from here. There was nothing wrong with wanting to leave. I needed it. The club needed it, and it was good for everyone. That's a point I ultimately agree with. I think it would have been great for them to let him go and kind of you know, reset the club in a way. There's too stagnant, relying too much on, you know, Messi sort of changing the game. They haven't necessarily built a cohesive team, just filled in with good players who can pass the ball to Messi. So they probably needed a bit of a shift, a bit of a moving on process, but, you know, they're tied to the hip, unfortunately. It says here, my wife with all pain of her soul supporting accompanied me, which is, you know, that's like Rooney thanking his wife for not leaving him after all those scandals he's had. It is what it is, isn't it? These women have committed themselves to this lifestyle, and they're gonna hang in there for the ride and be a ride or die in that respect. It says here Messi would now prepare to start the season under new Barcelona coach Ronald Koeman as a club bounced back from a dire 2019-20 season in which they failed to win the Liga and Champions League or reach the final of the Copa del Rey. Bloody hell, clean sweep of L's there, innit? But let me know, man, what do you think? Do you think the interview was a good one? Do you think it'd be hard for him to walk back into the change room after basically telling his club that, you know, they're not matching his ambitions and he thinks he's better than them? I wonder what happens there. But I guess because he's the best player, no one's going to chat shit to Messi in it. But I'll be interested to know what happens. But let me know about your thoughts about it in the comments down below. Next on the list, what do we have? We have. What else do we have here on the docket? Oh yeah, we have this, right? This is a story regarding Gareth Bale on Sky Sports News that kind of rubbed me up the wrong way because it definitely gave me an insight into Bale's temperament and just his, I wouldn't say his, what do you call it, pig-headedness, but he does seem incredibly unaware of like how he's perceived and the actions that kind of led him to a situation where he's essentially thumbing his nose in, you know, in direction of Real Madrid and essentially, you know, saying that he enjoys playing for Wales way more in playing golf per his flag than he does playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world, or because he feels as if like he's been disrespected by the lack of starts he's got and the cancelled move for China, which depending on what side of the story you believe, either the club are the ones that kind of, you know, closed the door on that one according to Bale, or it was the fact that Bale didn't have the motivation to kind of see the deal through. He essentially scuppered it on purpose. But it's interesting looking at it because I think it's a good insight into, I guess Bale was more similar to Eden Hazard that way. Hazard, I think, came out recently or one time in an interview and basically said, hey, look, I don't want to be a Ballon d'Or winner or anything. I just want to play really good football and have fun with my friends, with my teammates, I guess, in that respect. And you kind of have to respect that because, you know, there was a time and period where people were like, oh, is Hazard one of the best players in the world because he had that really sick season. It might have been like 2018, 2019 season where he was just smashing it for Chelsea. And everyone was kind of questioning his kind of level on the player totem pole, but it didn't really work out for him, I guess, in the long run. But yeah, I think this Gareth Bale interview is very, very illuminating from Sky Sports, and I'll play it for you now.
When I come here, as I said, I feel very happy, I feel very comfortable, I feel welcomed. So yeah, whatever goes on at Madrid goes on at Madrid.
And the laughing and the smirk, it's like, if I was a Madrid fan, I'd be so pissed off, man. Considering the money you paid, considering that he's never fit, always injured, I'd be really annoyed, man. He's proper taking the piss.
I've had plenty of experience to deal with it. It is what it is. But yeah, when I come here, I feel very settled, very happy. Everyone knows how passionate I am to play for Wales, and yeah, I come here excited to play football and motivated to do well and yeah, get back playing football where I belong.
It came as no surprise to me in the last sort of 48 hours since I've been up in Cardiff. A number of Wales fans have contacted me, either text or a few on social media. And they were asking, can you ask, is he going to stay or is he going to go? So I'm trying to ask the question from a Welsh point of view, is what is going to happen at Real Madrid? Do you know, are you staying or are you looking to leave?
I think the club needs to answer that question because, as I said, I tried to leave last year. They blocked everything.
I don't believe that. I don't believe he tried to leave. I think if he really went to go and play football, he would be playing football. I think he got in a position where he clearly knew or understood that he wasn't, you know, liked by the manager or wasn't favoured by the manager, and he basically saw his opportunities of playing dwindle, and that may be kind of, I think because I get the feeling that he kind of is taking the piss out of them because he feels like he's been wronged. So in that respect, I don't think he'd go out of his way to take a pay cut to move somewhere else to go play football, because he could easily do that, right? We've got a good example at Man United in Igalo, is who essentially took a pay cut to leave China, where he was getting paid, you know, a ridiculous salary per week, to take half the money or something close to that to come to his basically boyhood club, or a club that he's always supported in Manchester United. And a lot of players have done that, right? Where you mutually cancel or terminate a contract so you can move on to pastures new, and then the club doesn't have to pay you out of their pocket, and you can just basically sign to another club and earn your money that way. But for Bale, he essentially wants Madrid to sort of pay him out of his contract so that he can leave to go somewhere else. So he not only wants them to try and sell him to a club, but also offload him and then give him money for leaving, which is insane, really, in that respect, for him to kind of believe that's a sensible or a normal way to go about things. But again, maybe it's his right too. Do you know what I mean? He might just see football as a job. He might not see it as more than that. So I guess the way he kind of goes about it makes sense.
think at the last second. So it was a project that I was excited for last year, but yeah, it didn't materialise. So and there's been other instances where we've tried to go, but the club won't allow it, or they've done something. So yeah, I guess it's for the club. What can I say?
And does he even speak Spanish? He probably doesn't, does he? I assume someone of his ilk, considering how he's going about it. But it's strange, man. Again, I don't know whether or not he's always had this attitude, or it's something that happened. Something happened while George during his time there, but just the way he's kind of like taking the piss out of that club is really low.
I want to play football. I'm still motivated to play football.
I don't think you are, mate.
So yeah, I guess it's on the club really. I can't really do much. They're in control of everything, and yeah, I have a contract. All I can do is carry on what I'm doing, and hopefully something comes up.
Would you want him in your club if you're a Premier League supporter? Would you want him to play for you? Again, he's talented, we know that for sure, but he hasn't really shown it in a while. He's obviously not at the same sort of level he was in the past, and he just looks like somebody that maybe is just, you know, he's sort of going through the motions, clocking in for the sake of it, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? And then finally, we got some interesting news regarding Alexis Sanchez and Man United. Alexis Sanchez, of course, was had a very troubling experience at United. He didn't really do well. That's basically safe to say without kind of, you know, coming out and saying anything weird. It wasn't a good time for him at the club. And yeah, he's just basically essentially broken down everything. Well, not broken down. He went on Instagram Live the other day and sort of broke down what happened and told his side of the story, which I think is fair. I think that timing is weird, but of course maybe it makes sense because he's officially not a Man United player anymore. He's officially signed to Inter Milan, so that probably was a time for him to kind of, you know, let go and sort of like get something off his chest, exercise some demons. And his account of things kind of makes sense to me, and if anything, it kind of is embarrassing to the club, and also another indication as to why we shouldn't believe everything the club puts out, especially the stuff that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer say, because he's a bit of a company man in that regard. But this is a quote that I read for you here regarding him. He's basically a rough translation of what Alexis Sanchez said. He says the following. He says, before going there, I had an agreement with Man City, but it didn't pan out, and I got the chance to go to United. It was something nice for me. As a child, I liked the club a lot. I ended up signing without informing myself about what was going on behind the scenes, and there was things that you didn't realize until you got there, which is, again, he came at probably one of the worst times at United, right? We're going for a really turbulent period. Mourinho was obviously creating a very toxic atmosphere. The fan base was very, very much divided and very super on nerves, right? Fan cam channels were really dire and negative, and it was a really bad cloud hanging around the club in general. So for Sanchez to walk into that change room, especially off the back of playing, you know, being voted Arsenal Player of the Year and all that sort of stuff, and really being adored and loved by their fan base, he came to United to kind of win trophies, and he gets in a change room and he finds a team that's, you know, probably quality wise isn't there again to win trophies, and just as people, they weren't getting on at all. And it continues. It says, after the first training session, I realized that things weren't good. And when I got home, I asked my family and manager, can I break up the contract and go back to Arsenal? And they laughed about it. But I really left there with more bad things going on than I didn't like. So they thought he was making a joke, but he was being for real. He says, we weren't united as a team. The journalists would talk about knowing I would get upset. Even the ex-players didn't know anything about how it was going on. How the things were going. They would blame me, sorry. But players sometimes need for the team to be united, to be family, and we weren't, which is very true. Scapegoats are a standard thing in United, especially now during the post-Sir Ferguson period. Everyone's looking for someone to blame, whether it's, you know, justified or not. So that's not surprising in that regard. He says the match against West Ham, where I didn't get even dressed, didn't change, and that never happened to me before. It was really upsetting. It could be that I was one of the best in the top 5 Premier League 5 months ago, but now I wasn't even playing, and after that I got home and I really upset and sad, and the next day I trained double time. That's how I'm going to do my best to focus on football. And I guess that's the only part of it that's annoying about the whole quote, is that he doesn't really take any acknowledgement of his poor levels. Maybe in his eyes he could say, hey, I'm really talented at football and I train really hard, because when he was here he was always on a bench or playing. He was never completely out of the squad. So obviously obviously he was doing what he needed to be done in training to kind of impress the manager to be selected for the team squad, but it just didn't. I don't know. I don't know what exactly happened, but it just didn't work out, I guess, in that regard. But again, I would have loved him to be a bit more introspective and to kind of admit his wrongs and, you know, kind of draw a line in the sand in that regard. But hey, probably not going to happen. If you're a footballer, you know, you're probably all about you. So the next season we got a new coach, and I talked to him, which is Solskjaer, and I told him that I need the opportunity to leave. There was Inter as an option. I needed a fresh air, and he said there was no problem really, which again is a very counter argument to what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, where he said, "Oh, we need to get rid of the bad apples," and everyone assumed it was Lukaku and Pogba. I mean, Lukaku and Lukaku and Pogba at the time, innit? Right? It was definitely those two. So looking back on it now, look what's happened. He says here that I only have kind words for United for the opportunity. I'm upset that things didn't work out or go the way that I wanted it. If the team was more united and we were more of a family, if everything was more positive, I think we would have achieved much better things. I'm telling all this because I have learned from this as a player and as a person. Thanks to United, and I'm sad because I would have liked to win everything and make the fans happy, which is nice enough to way to end it. But again, lack of accountability for his level of performance is not really the lick. But again, I'm glad it's kind of everyone sort of amicably moved on. But if anything, like I said previously, I think it has exposed some glaring holes in our infrastructure as a club at United. We're clearly in a place where, you know, we're essentially having to rely on the manager being able to buy good players, right? There's no clear identity that we have. We're not recruiting a certain type of player or trying to play a certain type of way. It all just feels a little bit slapdashery, which might be his thing if you're social, but in terms of the modern game, you just need a bit more about you, right? You can't be substituting strikers on at the 80th minute, right? 85 minutes, sorry, if you're social. You can't be doing that. You have to kind of do things as a big coach. That's the place that I only worry about it. But again, you know, interesting. So, the social interest, that's the point. That's the point I'm about to make. It goes to show that whatever Solskjaer said about getting rid of the bad apples isn't true, because obviously he didn't sell Lukaku or Sanchez. They both asked to leave, which kind of maybe says a lot more about our team or our infrastructure as a label, or maybe as a genre, whatever it may be, than it does about the club. But yeah, that was that one. Let's move on, do a couple more, and then we'll leave. What's I say I want to do here? Let's take this away. What else I wanted to say here? Let me look at my notes. Bear with me 1 second. We spoke about that. We spoke about dish. Oh yeah, this is quite funny, isn't it? Let's end it on this, right? Because I thought this was hilarious and maybe is indicative of just how ridiculous some of these hip hop people are, in it. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this, but news kind of broke over the weekend that supposedly AP Illz, one of the founding members of ASAP, don't get me wrong, a very integral member. If you're part, or if you are familiar with ASAP Mob Law, you would know how influential of a part AP Illz plays in the formation of that group. But essentially one of the kind of periphery figures in terms of, he doesn't put out music, he's more so the fashion forward kind of visionary for the entire group in terms of introducing people to brands and different sort of styles, and just generally a bit of a cool dude in that respect, right? So he had some words to say regarding A AP Ferg out of the blue, which I'm assuming was kind of backed off the back of an argument they basically had in private. But he said the following: he said, "Ferg ain't ASAP no more. Sorry guys, that nigga burnt out. Songs dumb trash. Mr. Anthem can't get right." Which, you know, is harsh, considering some people would argue that Ferg might be the more successful and more well-rounded and more kind of critically acclaimed artist. Not critically acclaimed, it's not that. Maybe just a better kind of overall act in terms of what he can do and the kind of desire he has to make music and tour and do features. He might be the one, as opposed to A$AP Rocky. A$AP Rocky is obviously, if you read his interviews, he's more in it for the art. He's more in it for the legacy, the idea of kind of leaving an imprint on the scene. But in terms of actually being a commercial rapper, definitely Ferg is the one in the group. So for anyone, so for someone who's not even making music, suggest he's getting kicked out of the group is really odd. But again, I'm assuming it's a personal feud. And then the next slide, we've got, "Damn right, I ain't no yes man, but you niggas don't respect that shit. You'll rather have a nigga who's not even halfway on my level around just cause he's a yes man and do whatever you want at the snap of your fingers. That shit's goofy," which is odd. Again, I don't know what that's about. The next guy says, they've been calling me the golden child for years now, and it's not for no reason. I've been him, which is what? Is that jealousy that Ferg is where he is at the moment? Is it to do with, usually it's to do with girls or money, right? Maybe. Then he posts a screenshot of supposed to be a conversation that he had with Ferg, where Ferg's basically telling him to call him and stop playing with him, and he's telling him to go, basically dance on his penis. And then it kind of evolved from there to ASAP. You see Young Lord, getting involved. ASAP Bari, you see him here in the comments. He essentially says ASAP Illz started ASAP. If it wasn't for him, it wouldn't be no ASAP Mob. So Illz, and he said what he said, which is funny considering that if anybody in the group shouldn't be talking about anything about getting kicked out of a mob, is probably ASAP Bari. He went through what he went through allegedly with that indecent incident that we witnessed via the handiwork of his friend with a camera phone. Again, what friend does that? What friend records somebody, aggressively taking off the sheets of a naked female that happens to be in there with your boy? And again, it's a weird American thing, isn't it? That you'd want to walk into your room, a room where your boy's in, where he's kind of getting comfortable with a young female, and strip the bed, or talk to them and engage them. It's just bizarre. It's a very American thing. Maybe it comes from the frat houses and stuff, or being away in college and dorms, but it's very interesting, very strange, actually, not interesting. So for Barry to come out and say anything is interesting, is mad, because some would argue he shouldn't be in ASAP anyway, based on the stuff that he's done in the past, allegedly, and how he sort of conducted himself behind the scenes, if you believe what you read on the net. So he jumped in there and basically said, hey, I'm back in Illz. And then I guess ASAP Nas had to finally kind of rectify the situation and say, hey, it's all good now. And it's funny because ASAP Nas, he's kind of one of the main culprits in that crew for starting dumb beef, right? Wasn't it a few months ago that he was screaming on his Instagram stories about Supreme and saying how he started it, and they should be, what's the thing called? What's that term they use? Paying homage and all that nonsense, isn't it? Like they always get involved in the most ridiculous things, isn't it? They argue about who wore this first, and it's always clothes and dumb stuff like that. Like, who gives a crap? You're all multi-millionaires. Of course you're gonna have some overlapping in the stuff that you buy, right? There's only, I guess most people anyway, especially artists, the more they level up, the more they sort of taste buds increase and what they want. You look at Gunna, for instance, right? Suddenly now he's wearing bloody chrome hearts or every day in designer garments. You look at Gunna from a few years back when he wasn't as lit, let's say, his budget didn't really stretch that far. But when you get rich, I guess in some respects, your brand sort of changed. Don't get me wrong, it's a bit unique in that respect, because as a crew, they do have a very unique sense of style, and they tend to kind of, dip into some interesting brands and not get the obvious stuff. But still, like, let's relax in it. Like, there's only so many clothes in the world people can wear at one time. If there's some overlap, it is what it is. But it's funny to see now sort of stopping and say, hey, this is kind of ridiculous and embarrassing. But here's what his comment. He said the Trap Lord was not and will not be kicked out of ASAP. False news, everybody, go home now, which is interesting. And then he continues here. He says, it's extremely embarrassing and unnecessary for it to happen the way it did, but it did, and this will be taken care of the right way. Good night, y'all. Disputes happen in families all over the world every day. Be Designer Boy out now on all streaming platforms. I guess he's promoting his questionable hit record, but regardless, it's just interesting, isn't it, as a group, that they kind of be going through this in public. And just again, imagine being in a position where you feel comfortable saying with your chest, if you're Illz, right, that you want to kick out Ferg because, I don't know what, he didn't return a text on time or something, right? But when Ian Connor's been accused of 70 million rapes, and Barry did what he did, and all this other malarkey in that crew, they don't get any kind of blowback for the sake of it, for the most part, right? Or no sort of public comment, right? Didn't Rock even go as far as calling Barry a bitch in a lyric? But Ian Connor's still his best friend, or his muse, or some of these kind of mentoring. It's very odd, very selective. Again, I don't know if it's because Fergus kind of glowed up and he's got himself a girlfriend, and he's essentially got a better team around him, because I think that's something he was complaining about, right? He's doing things the right way. Maybe his last track he put out wasn't the best. He didn't perform that well, actually. Let me just say, actually, as a song, it's good, but these guys all care about numbers. Maybe that's a thing, I'm not too sure. But A really strange one, odd beef, one of the weirdest beefs you see on your timeline, and something that I probably don't want to go back and revisit, unfortunately. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think Illz is in the wrong there for airing Ferg out in public? Should Ferg maybe move on in the same style as YB and Corday and kind of, you know, drop the mob, just kind of be drop the ASAP and just be Ferg? Should that be a thing going forward? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, you know what? That is the Agostinho Zinga Show, episode number 366. I'm going to end it right there. 367, sorry. If it's your first time watching the show via YouTube, please make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. If you're listening via the podcast app, please leave me a 5-star review and share the show with your friends. And if you want to support the podcast or your Patreon, please do with the link below as well. Patreon.com/Agostinho. That's patreon.com/AGOSTINHO. Click that link down below and get involved. But until then, see you guys very, very soon. Take care. Peace